Interesting presentation. We'll take 2 questions from the floor. If anybody has questions.
the Executive Chairperson of Polity, a think tank dedicated to evidence-based policy making, advocacy, and also impactful interventions. A strong advocate for socio-economic justice and equitable development, she has played a vital role in shaping policies that empower communities and drive meaningful change. With deep commitment to governance, innovation, and human capital development, Puan Nurul Izzah has been actively involved in various national and also regional initiatives, fostering good relationships between policy, industry, and society. Her leadership at Polity reflects her dedication to fostering inclusive and sustainable progress. Now again, ladies and gentlemen, please do join me in welcoming Puan Nurul Izzah to the stage to deliver her insights. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much, Mikul, for the introduction. And thank you, Ben. I think you probably have set the benchmark for many global CEOs. I was fortunate enough to listen to a few from BCG and PwC. And I think back in 2018, I said that Ipsos at least had a soul, which really goes a long way in terms of presenting the sentiments and the feelings of communities. So we have, of course, Kiranjit, Dr. Amjad, Ganesan, everyone who's here present, teman-teman seperjuangan, friends from the media and the larger policy ecosystem semuanya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning. Thank you very much for being here. And terima kasih kerana sudi hadir. I think we all benefited a lot from that presentation. At least you're not the least popular. So it's been quite challenging for me to listen, but again, these are truths that we have yet to master in a sense of producing solutions and, of course, making sure that governments, civil service, basically institutions in power, because governments is also made up by many, many agencies, and we have to ensure they're not fragmented, more receptive and targeted. So, thank you, Ben, for that. And I think it was very thought-provoking. It was very frank, and the numbers have helped in terms of before leading to my short keynote. Now, I really feel very fortunate, very blessed, that as chair of Polity, to co-host this event together with Ipsos. And I thank the entire hardworking Ipsos team for being here, and to all of you for coming. Now, actually, all these years, and we have Ministry of Women officials at the back, I think what's important in terms of findings is that they are prescient, and also that they're effective, and they focus on people's well-being. So I think earlier on, it was engagement with the Ministry of Women back in 2018, but we have been appreciative of Ipsos' work, which goes deep into the beating heart and pulse of societies and communities. Now, I recall a report released in 2020 by Ipsos. It was on the state of Malaysia's healthcare. Now, it showed a jump in renewed and improved trust from 2018 Malaysians had in the healthcare sector. And I felt it was prescient because just 3 years later, the world was abuzz with corresponding studies showcasing linkage between trust in government and adherence to COVID-related preventive measures. And as we all know, it was a key success, one of the key success determinants in controlling the surge of the pandemic. Now, similarly, pre-Polity 2021 saw us buried deep in trying to uncover COVID-related measurements of multidimensional poverty. By 2023, we realized that the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index report for nearly 110 countries missed capturing the effects of the pandemic except for our small, humble study conducted in mainland Penang. So, ladies and gentlemen, why does it matter to listen to the beating hearts of the people, not just on Valentine's Day, but on every day, because it counts? And of course, one is to understand before you attempt to communicate. Now, from great economies to great countries, what defines greatness? Now, in the size Is it the size of our economies, the double-digit GDP growth, towering skyscrapers as far as the eyes can endure, and sheer military killing machines in industrial prowess? Or is it the ability for households to live and define the good life? Workers earning meaningful wages, children enjoying time in schools, learning before expanding their horizons, enriching their minds, and eventually their families, accessible and quality healthcare, and a safe environment accorded to all neighborhoods. Today, I'd like to argue that such greatness begins through the development of a human security policy mindset towards societal resilience. It bears reminding, even in Singapore, when we met up with the ministers, one of the key concerns they had was, yes, they might have achieved greatness in terms of academic qualifications, but when they are hit with a crisis, whether at home or amongst friends, that mental resilience crumbles or is non-existent. Now, for far too long, the United States has occupied our image of great nationhood. But perhaps that is an occupation that must be resisted. The US itself has failed to live up to its own promises and dreams. And in the US, a country often seen as a beacon of prosperity, millions of children still live in poverty with systemic inequalities perpetuating cycles of disadvantage. Now, we're talking about an economy exceeding 20 trillion US dollars. Over 28 million Americans still remain uninsured. 1.7 trillion in student debt and a soaring healthcare cost that is burdening millions. In 1964, US President Lyndon Johnson had attempted to frame the Great Society as a place where men are more concerned with the quality of their goals than the quantity of their goods. Today, 1 in 6 American children continue to live in poverty, and this is despite that the US spends more on healthcare than any other country. Ben can confirm that. A huge portion of the budget, of course, is still spent on war and supporting atrocities, especially genocide overseas. Now, it has one of the highest rates of child poverty amongst developed nations, signaling not just a failure of policy, but of imagination. And I think, when I was growing up, I remember the US as a place where inequality is explained away, as a result of hard work, through grit, as opposed to inherited privilege. But now it's quite shocking. I think you can see this for yourselves, right? On your screen, day to day. It is a country where privilege rules and is actively dismantling safety nets. So in contrast, while far from perfect, I think it was alluded to in Ben's presentation, the European Union has traditionally given greater priority to human security. Now, despite a combined GDP of around 15 trillion US dollars, and as it faces a stuttering economy, lagging behind China and the US, many of the EU member states will rank, or still rank, amongst the highest in global human development indices. So from universal healthcare to robust safety nets, to countries like Sweden and Denmark, boasting some of the lowest child poverty rates in the world, these countries prioritize societal resilience. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I think the truth is we are living in a new post-pandemic reality. Just before the pandemic, not taking into account the ongoing active crisis worldwide, or poly-crisis, as Adam Tooze alluded to, over 20 million lives were lost. Over 63 million affected by long COVID. I'm sure some of you perhaps might have experienced parts of it. And trillions vanished from the global economic shock. Big businesses perhaps have bounced back, but small businesses have been slow to recover. Now, I believe, and I think it's important for governments to kind of take on that the pandemic has given us a chance to reset our priorities. And core to the reset is the trust in governments. Trust, after all, is the bedrock of any society, and at 24%, If it goes lower, without it, even the most well-intentioned policies crumble like a house built on sand. So now Ipsos findings have shown us, not just has made us more sober, that trust can be rebuilt. And this is how I segue to Malaysia. Malaysia is trying to be a great economy just as it has tried to be a great society. Now, the challenge for every generation since independence is to make this dream a reality. So thankfully, since our inception, Malaysia has tried to balance between pursuit of economic growth and a fair and inclusive society. The second caliph in Islam, Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab, established Diwan al-Ata, a registry for recipients of the state treasury surplus. It was used to distribute money yearly, Dr. Amjad, amongst the old and the young, newborns and even slaves. Safety nets, inclusive development, universal healthcare, and educational opportunities. So when we think of greatness, we cast our minds into the past for inspiration and lessons, and we cast our minds into the future, filling it with hopes as well as our fears. To the past, we draw for inspiration, and in the future, we place our hopes. But this mission is not without its challenges and gaps. By 2029, and I refer to Ipsos data, Malaysia will become an aging nation. 15% of our population above the age of 60. I know Ministry of Women is currently drawing up, working hard, a blueprint to manage the aging future. And furthermore, 40% of our workers remain outside the pension safety net of the Employees' Provident Fund, represented this time by Hawati. Out-of-pocket healthcare expenditure is at 37%, where the poorest 20% pay as much as 941 ringgit more. There still remains much work to be done. As outlined in the Malaysian government's Economy Madani, translated as civilized economy, raising the floor, leveling the playing field, as well as improving wealth and well-being. So the struggle of pursuing both the twin goals of achieving social protection and high-income nation status is real. Without social protection, the economy is set to join the ranks of developed nations. But sacrificing social welfare at the expense of a more dynamic economy would leave our societies breaking at the seams. So this, for me, is one of the visions and virtues of human security, a vision that demands that we invest in mental health, education, social welfare, and inclusive economic opportunities. That we even the balance between wealth and well-being. But standing in the way of greatness are a couple of things. Institutions matter, but institutions must work. They must remain relevant over time, and needs of time change. We realize this in our work, in our study, and in our engagements. And one key question we have to answer is, are our institutions relevant to meet existing and future challenges? This is where Polity hopes to contribute. It's a new initiative that we founded as a platform to empower communities, particularly women and youth, and we aim to make strategic interventions in order to shape greatness out of the potential in the present. Now, if in 2021, friends, we discovered the added precarity of households led by single mothers, then in 2025, we tried to investigate how tourism as an economic driver in Langkawi, was not enough to salvage local indigenous industries without the necessary savings, safety nets, and handheld assistance by relevant agencies to help small businesses survive. Now, not content with the microcredit programs like Amanah Ikhtiar Malaysia, which since its inception in 1987, 3 years after Muhammad Yunus introduced Grameen in Bangladesh, engaged over 1.2 million women, Malaysian women, offering them financial tools to change their lives. Now, the latest record-breaking portfolio at risk is at 0.02%. So we ensured there's also intervention in the healthcare, because just because they were financially literate, it's not confirmed that they actually had access to life-saving knowledge. And we realized cervical and breast cancer screening was really not normalized amongst them. And doing this really helped elevate, bring them to the next level, inshallah, as well as they teaching us. Because there's a lot of knowledge, right, that's inherent in these women. And sometimes you think you know so much, but when you meet people, you realize there's much more to learn from. And most important, as Malaysia did during the vaccination phase, during COVID, we did not leave anyone behind in the disbursement of aid, in the disbursements of vaccines. So must we not leave anyone behind when we talk about giving aid, healthcare, and educational rights, regardless of citizenship status. This is an ongoing challenge. It's an ongoing process. There is a running battle between empathy and human prejudice. So ladies and gentlemen, allow me to end by stating generosity goes hand in hand with greatness. So even as our circumstances improve, let's not forget that the nations cited earlier, Malaysia, Southeast Asia, included are regions of peacetime. So we are not beset by raging wars or an ongoing genocide and various natural disasters. So as such, we owe it to the world to do our best in improving societal well-being, as well as pursuing economic growth, but also to currently aid those who are weak and vulnerable within our midst and beyond. So good luck to everybody. Again, generosity goes hand in hand with greatness. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Thank you, Puan Nurul Izzah. While we certainly feel nostalgic, based on what we understand and based on what we have seen from Ipsos results, we remain hopeful for what's in store for us in the future. So before I invite the next speaker, I would like to again, please join us in giving Ben a warm welcome, because he will be leaving shortly for another event, thanking him again for his time and also for sharing his insights. Thank you, Ben. Please. Our next speaker, Mr. Kiranjit Singh, is the head of APAC for Ipsos Strategy 3, bringing over 20 years of experiences in business strategy and market development across Europe,